Daf Yomi, Tractate Menachot, page 44b, with the Mishnah. The Mishnah returns to discussing halachot of meal offerings, which are the central theme of this tractate. It's interesting, you took a detour and we got off on a tangent about tefillin and mezuzos and tzitzis and Sofer Torah, but now we're coming back to Menachos. Okay. Yet the Mishnah says, the absence of the fine flour and the oil for the meal offering accompanying burnt offerings and peace offerings does not prevent libation of the wine. And the absence of the wine for libation does not prevent sacrifice for the flour and the oil. Failure to perform some of the placements of blood on the external altar does not prevent fulfillment of the mitzvah with the other placements, as even if the priest performed only one placement of blood, the offering affects atonement after the fact. And now it is time for the Gemara. Tanu Rabbanon, Menachot v'niskeihem. Havi mincha kach havi niskeihem nisachim. Rabbi Yomer, zevach u'nisachim havi zevach kach havi nisachim. The sages taught in Braita the verse concerning the additional offering sacrificed on Sukkot on the 8th day of the assembly states, Shmini Atzeres, states, and their meal offerings and their libations for the bulls and for the rams and for the lambs, Numbers 29:18. This indicates that after the animal is sacrificed, one may bring the meal offering and then bring the libations. Rabbi Yehuda Nasi says, Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, call him Rabbi. Rabbi says that since the verse states to bring an offering made by fire to the Lord, a burnt offering and a meal offering, an animal offering and libations, each in its own day, Leviticus 23:37, one must bring the animal offering and then bring the libations and only then bring the meal offering. The Gemara asks, but according to Rabbi Yehuda Nasi also isn't it written, and their meal offering and their libations, indicating that the meal offering precedes libations? The Gemara answers, that verse is necessary in order to teach that once the animals have been sacrificed during the day, their meal offering and their libations may be offered even at night. And similarly, their meal offering and their libations may be offered even the next day. The Gemara asks, but according to the rabbis, also isn't it written in animal offering and libations, indicating that libations immediately follow the animal offering and precede the meal offering? The Gemara answers that verse is necessary to teach that the halacha is according to the statement of Ziri, as Ziri says, the libations. Second here. Phonage. Where were we? The statement of Ziri. As the Eri says, libations that accompany animal offerings are consecrated only through the slaughter of the animal offering. This means that once the animal is slaughtered, libations that were set aside to be brought with the animal offering cannot be delivered to accompany a different animal offering. The Rabbi Nami mi boile lechid Ziri v'Rabbanon Nami mi boilehu leminchos u'miniskeim. The Gemara points out that both opinions remain difficult, But Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi should also require the phrase an animal offering and libations to teach that the halacha is in accordance with the statement of the Iri, and the rabbis should also require the phrase and their meal offering and their libations to indicate that their meal offering and their libations may be offered even at night, and their meal offering and libations may be offered even the next day. The Gemara offers a different explanation of this dispute in the Braita. Rather, this is the reasoning of the rabbis. As it is written in the verse, to bring an offering made by fire to the Lord, a burnt offering and a meal offering, and animal offering and libations, each in its own day. The rabbis derive from this that the meal offering should be offered immediately following the animal burnt offering. The Gemara asks, but according to Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, also isn't it written, a burnt offering and a meal offering, ela bevoim im hazevach dekol yam lo pligi mincha ve'achar kach nesochim dehachsiv oilo mincha ki pligi bevoim mipnei atzmon rabbanon savrim in devoim im hazevach mincha ve'achar kach nesochim mipnei atzmon nami mincha ve'achar kach nesochim. Rather, with regard to libations that accompany an animal offering, everyone agrees that the meal offering should be brought, and afterward the libations should be brought, as it is written about offering and meal offering. When they disagree, it is with regard to meal offerings and libations that are brought by themselves. The rabbis hold that from the fact that when meal offerings and libations accompany offerings, the meal offerings are brought, and then, and only then, libations are brought. It can be derived that when they are brought by themselves also, the first the meal offering is brought, and then the libations are brought. Rebbe, Hasmunai Yaskil Vachila Gamale, Ledechule Amin Sadachila, Abul Bneats when the Sokim Adifi, Hoy Libisamo Shiralayu. And Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi holds that it is specifically there in the case of meal offerings and libations that accompany an animal offering, and the meal offering is burned on the altar before the wine libation is poured on the altar. This is because since the altar has started to eat, meaning consume the animal offering, one must first complete the entire matter of the altar's eating, including the meal offering. The pouring of the wine on the altar is likened more to drinking than to eating. But when the meal offering and the libations are brought by themselves, the libations are considered preferable because the song of the Levites is recited over them. Consequently, the pouring of the libations precedes the burning of the meal offering on the altar. The Mishnah teaches failure to perform some of the placements of blood on the external altar does not prevent fulfillment of the mitzvah with other placements, as even if the priest performed only one placement, the offering affects atonement after the fact. Tanu Abanon. Minayin lechol anitoni al mizbeach achitzon shenotzon mevatona achas shekiper shenema v'dam zivochecha yishopech al mizbeach Hashem lokecha. Apropos the statement the sages taught in Braita, from where is it derived with regard to all offerings whose blood is to be placed on the external altar, that if one placed their blood with one act of placement as opposed to the 2 or 4 that are required depending upon the offering, that the offering has nevertheless affected atonement after the fact, meaning one has fulfilled this obligation to bring the offering, as it is stated, and the blood of your offering shall be poured out against the altar of the Lord your God. Deuteronomy 12:27. That concludes the Talmud, and now we're on to the next Mishnah. Zog the Heilige Mishnah, Paul Meili Makvosim Asirim, in the Makvin Zezer, which Imenomer Im Hayu Lohem Porim Merubim, Velo Hayu Lohem Nisochim, Yovipal Echod Unisochim, Velo Yakrivu Kulam Velo Nisochim. The Mishnah says, failure to sacrifice one of the bulls, the rams, the sheep, or the goats of the additional offerings brought on festivals does not prevent the sacrifice of the others. Rabbi Shimon says, if the temple treasurers had sufficient funds for the numerous bulls that are required to be sacrificed on that day, but they did not also have sufficient funds for the accompanying libations, they should rather bring one bull and its libation, and they should not sacrifice all of them without libations. It's good to have a whole thing. Okay, Zogdei the Talmud. The Gemara says, Hani Paul The Gemara asks, with regard to these bulls, rams, and sheep mentioned in the Mishnah, on which festival are they offered? If we say that these are the offerings of the festival of Sukkot, this is difficult. It is written with regard to those days that their offerings must be brought according to the ordinance. See Numbers 29:18. And according to their ordinance, Numbers 29:33. This indicates that no deviation from the Torah's prescription is possible. Rather, the Mishnah must be referring to the 2 bulls, 1 ram, and 7 sheep of the new moon and Shavuot, as mentioned in the book of Numbers 28:11 and 27. Okay, stop here.